Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much everyone that took a second and liked my video and took the time to subscribe. I really appreciate it. This video, I wanted to start to share part of Brady's story. So Brady will be 2 months old on the 15th of this month. He is our fourth baby. We have 2 other boys and a little girl. So we really kind of felt like we knew what we were getting into, basically. We knew what to expect. We didn't think there'd be too many surprises. Kind of had everything we already needed because Carson was only a little over a year old when we found out that we were going to have Brady. So there wasn't even anything that we really needed to buy and to prepare for. We really felt pretty prepared. When it was time for our anatomy scan, that's the scan where they kind of look at the baby from top to bottom to make sure that everything is there, that they're doing well, that they're growing, and they can also tell you the sex of the baby at that scan. When we went to, that appointment, Tom was allowed to go. I had to go to all the other ones by myself because of COVID, and they didn't want the increased germs and all of that stuff. So we found out that he was a boy, and we were super excited. And the scan went really great. There was really no surprises. They did say that the baby had club feet, but Tom had clubbed feet when he was born. So really, it wasn't that much of a surprise. We kind of experienced something similar with 2 of our other kids, so we knew really what to expect. But with Brady, they wanted to send us to a high-risk specialist because they thought it was both feet, and there's other complications that can happen with both feet. They also wanted to make sure that there weren't any other abnormalities which can go along with club feet. So they decided to send us to a high-risk center. So once we were at the high-risk center, I have really bad anxiety when it comes to doctor's appointments. I don't remember the tests that we've had done. I don't know the right questions to ask. So I called ahead and I wanted to see if Tom was allowed to come up with me. And they said that if it's not something that's life-threatening or something that's really, really serious, that spouses were not allowed in. They didn't want the extra germs and contact and all that stuff. So I really had to just kind of suck it up and go by myself. You know, I figured it was just club feet. There's other people there for much worse things, so it's just something that I have to go and do. So he dropped me off. We were one of the first appointments in the morning. We had a sitter for the other kids, and he wasn't even allowed in the waiting room. So I went in, it was my turn, and the scan was going really well. I was watching the baby on the monitor. I could hear his heartbeat, and I loved the ultrasound tech. She was awesome, and I wasn't really nervous anymore. Then they called, she gets to the end, and she said, well, I'm just going to get the doctor so we can take a look. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. Like, why would they have the doctor come in? But it was a high-risk center, and I hadn't been there for any of my other kids, so I thought that must just be what they do and how they do things. So the doctor came in, and he was really great, and he starts looking, and he starts asking me questions. He asked me if I had any genetic testing done and if I did the Down syndrome test. I wasn't really sure. I didn't think we had done it for Brady. I know we did it for all the other ones, but I said to him, I'm really not sure. My husband is better at that stuff. I said, but I really don't think that we did either of those tests. So he goes, okay. And he goes back to looking at the scan. And after I don't know, a couple minutes, he looks at me and he puts the thing down for the ultrasound. He goes, I want you to call your husband. I want you to tell him to come upstairs. And everything in me kind of froze because I thought, but they told me over the phone that if it was life-threatening or extremely serious, that's when they allow spouses up. And we were just there for club feet. So I didn't completely panic. I looked at the ultrasound tech and I told her that. I said what they told me over the phone, and she didn't really say anything because they can't. So I thought, well, he asked me about Down syndrome. Maybe it's Down syndrome. Maybe he found something. So I call Tom and I tell him that he needs to come up, and he said, okay, he would be right there. And he said that he was just right downstairs, and he actually was down the street, but he knew that I would completely panic if I knew he was not right in the building. So as they're waiting for him to get there, probably took 15 minutes or so, the doctor is like, well, I'm just going to go look in the waiting room for him. I'm just going to go wait and see if I can see him. And the ultrasound tech had tears in her eyes, and I was just kind of starting to panic. And I texted my best friend and I said, something is wrong. Something is seriously wrong. I don't know what it is. I'm waiting for Tom to come up here. They won't see anything. And she started to panic and she goes, well, does he have a heartbeat? And I said, yes, he has a heartbeat, but I don't know what's wrong. So Tom gets there and they bring us into a room and we sit down, and he goes, have you ever heard of the corpus callosum? And I said, no. And he goes, it's part of the brain. It's the white matter in the brain that connects both halves of the brain so that they work together. So at this point, I didn't even know what he was getting at, what questions or what he was going to say. So my whole body felt numb. I didn't even know what to think. So he says, without our baby's corpus callosum hadn't formed, and it should be there by this week of development. It should be there by now. They should be able to see it. He said that without it, babies can be very, very severely handicapped. Most of them are born blind. Most of them have epilepsy. There's chances he wouldn't be able to walk, feed himself. He would just be severely handicapped. So he said that maybe there is a chance that it just hasn't developed yet and it's a little slower to develop. So he said that most parents in that situation might choose to terminate the pregnancy because of the severity of it and how difficult it's going to be. He said that in New York State, you legally have up to 23 weeks to decide if you want to terminate a pregnancy. So he looks over at the nurse and he says, how far along is she? And the nurse goes, she's 22 weeks and 5 days. So that gave us less than 24 hours, he's saying, to decide if we want to keep the pregnancy or not. He said that there's 2 tests we can do, an amniocentesis, but that took 5 days to get back, and blood work. That also takes 5 days to get back, and we had less than 24 hours. So in my head, I'm thinking, so you're saying that I should consider stopping the heartbeat of my either severely handicapped baby or my perfectly healthy baby, and maybe it just hasn't formed yet. So I knew that if I opened my mouth to say anything, I was going to cry and not be able to like regain any kind of composure to even speak. So I waited and I said, so you want me to stop my baby's heartbeat? And he goes, I was like, that would be killing my baby. And he said, no, it's not what I'm saying at all. And I said, that's exactly what you're saying. I couldn't say anything else. I looked up at Tom and he looked just as upset, and I could not get out any other words. And he looked at me and he looked at the doctor and he said, termination is not an option. And I was so thankful that he was able to see that in my eyes without me even having to say anything, because I couldn't. I wouldn't be able to do it. So we had to figure out if part of my baby's brain wasn't there or if it was there and it hadn't developed yet. We had to do an MRI. So the MRI, we had to wait 2 months for the MRI. It was December 2nd. That was the longest 2 months of my entire life. I wasn't upset that the baby would or could be handicapped. I wasn't upset if we had to change everything about our life, our way of living. I was worried mostly that the baby wouldn't ever know that we loved him. Would he be able to feel that we loved him? Would he be able to know that we loved him? Would I be able to show him that I loved him enough for him to know? It was really hard going home and seeing my other kids and thinking, what if he can't ever do this? What if he never walks? Do we have to put in, bedrooms downstairs? I won't be able to carry him up the stairs when he gets to be a certain weight. What if we have to move? Or will he go to school? Will he get bullied in school? Will he feel like nobody loves him when he's older? Will he feel lonely? Will people not want to be his friend? Would he get picked on? Will he just struggle? It was really hard thinking of all of those things because you want to protect your baby and you don't ever want them to feel pain. And you want them to feel love and happiness. And I was worried that he wouldn't feel those things. So we were on the same page the entire time, my husband and I, which made it a lot easier because I didn't handle it as well as he did. I definitely shut down. I was awake for weeks waiting for this stupid MRI. I was obsessed with Googling brain scans and trying to find the corpus callosum in brain scans, ultrasound images and MRI images, so that I could look at the ultrasound, because I had appointments like every other day. And no, 1 minute sooner than the doctor would tell me if they saw it or not. So I called my doctor and I filled them in and I told them everything, and they got me in the next morning and they swear that they had seen it. So he wanted to get a third opinion because it's so small, and with an ultrasound it's so hard to see things sometimes. So we had a third opinion by a doctor from Rochester High Risk Center. And he came out and basically did the ultrasound and then said, no, it's not there. He said there was no evidence of it being there. Every time somebody said there was no evidence of it being there at a different doctor's appointment, I just felt like a punch in the face. I knew it wasn't going to be there. Wasn't expecting it to be there. I wasn't even hopeful that it would be there, because it is, it was what it was. And if God wanted me to have this baby, I remember saying, God, I am totally fine having a baby that is any way that you want him to be. I just need to know if it's definitely not there or if it's definitely there, because wondering if maybe it hadn't formed yet, it was just killing me inside and driving me nuts. So we had 3 opinions. 1 said that they thought they saw it. 2 said that it wasn't there at all. So the day came for the MRI, and it was at the cancer center at Upstate. Tom was not allowed in to the hospital. We had just entered. It was like a level orange or something like that, level some color that wouldn't allow him in. And so I had to go in by myself. I went into the MRI. It was supposed to be 45 minutes. It ended up being 2.5 hours because the MRI machine froze twice. So they kept having to pull me out and then restart the machine and pull me back in. And I remember thinking like, literally this tens of thousands of dollars machine, and you're just turning it on and off again. That's really how you're restarting it. But it's how they restarted it. So they'd pull me out and they would restart it and they'd pull me back in. I didn't have my phone. Poor Tom had no way of knowing how long, like what was happening. It took 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours. Then we had to wait for the neurologist to look at it. And so we got the call from the neurologist, and he said he does see the corpus callosum, but there's fluid all in the back of the baby's brain, and maybe that's why they couldn't see it before. There's fluid all in the back of the baby's brain. He has a hole in his heart, and then he also noted the bilateral club feet. I didn't even care if he had feet at this point. I was so worried about his little brain and now his heart, which was never a thing before. So because of all of this and these new findings, we were thrilled that the corpus callosum was there, but now it led to a whole new level of terrifying things it could be. With the Down syndrome test was negative, so all of the fluid in the back of the brain, what was it? Why was it there? What caused it to be there? What did it damage? it was just, the list was ongoing, and now his little heart had a hole in it. So they decided to send us to CHOP to do another MRI and a day of testing. The entire thing was a lot. It was so much, and it wasn't even our first baby. It was our fourth baby. So we were going to be bringing this baby home to all these other kids, and what will he need and what's going to happen. No one could tell me a straight answer of what was there, what wasn't there, what was happening. Every time we went to a doctor's appointment, it was something new. It was terrifying, and it was awful. So that is the first half of Brady's story. So that this video isn't ridiculously long, I will share with you the second half of his story in my next video, because that's when they sent us to Philadelphia to the Children's Hospital. And there they found new things that were never seen before. And it was a day of testing, a day and a half of testing, and I had to do it by myself. Tom was in Philly with me, and so were the kids, but I had to go into the hospital alone and spend, the 2 days there and everything. So I cannot thank you guys enough for listening to his story and for the support, for all of the love that I've gotten already. I just want to be a support system for someone else. And honestly, we have a long road ahead of us of neurologist appointments and cardiology, and he has 2 genetic specialists, which I didn't even know that was a thing. And not only is it a thing, but he has 2. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He's more doctors than I have. Pretty sure I have a lot of gray hair now. If not, I will soon. So thank you for listening to my story. Please like my video and subscribe to my channel. If you could share it, I want to get it out there to as many people. I just want to see, just relate to other moms, other families that have gone through something similar, or just what is their story? What's your story? It's more common, I think, than people realize. And I think it's important that we all have each other, because it's really hard. And you don't realize kind of how traumatizing it is until you've been through it and you're terrified and you can't even hold your baby yet. You can't see him. There's nothing that you can do physically, which is just the worst part. So thank you guys so much for watching my video. I promise the rest of my story won't be so heavy and deep. I swear there is a happy ending. So thank you so much for sticking it out with me. Please like my video and subscribe, and I cannot wait to share the second half of my video and the second half of Brady's story with you in the next video. And in the next video, I will introduce you to my sweet baby Brady. Thanks, guys.